Hello, everyone, and welcome to the 2024 Buffalo Bills team preview. We're talking the most fantasy relevant players, what the betting markets think of this squad, win totals, breakouts, all that, and much, much more. It is a team preview after all. You guys know what we're getting at here. Very excited, and in 30 minutes, we're going to know a lot more. So let's get after it. I'm your host, Ian Hartz, and joining me, as always, is Fantasy Life Director of Analytics and all-around baller, Dwayne "The Rock" McFarland. And it is time to break down the AFC East. Reigning, defending, undisputed champions. That's right, it is your Buffalo Bills. But Dwayne, not quite the same monster we've seen in past years, perhaps. Stefon Diggs, longtime wide receiver one, is out. Keon, Coleman, all-time already. I think we can say that. Great interviewer and second-round draft pick is in. Curtis Samuel is also in to help complete this wide receiver course. So yes, Josh Allen, still one of the NFL's very best QBs, but how concerned are you, Dwayne, with the absence of a true number one wide receiver in this Bills passing attack?
Yeah, I'm definitely concerned. I mean, I know Stefon Diggs entering, the later stages of his career, but he was still really the number one option by far for Josh Allen last year. So we'll see what it looks like. I don't think any one of these guys can step up and just completely replace Stefon Diggs, but they're just hoping some of these young guys, plus the addition of Curtis Samuel, that maybe they can just spread it across all of them. I do think all of these guys have the chance, Ian, to be quality players, in this offense. Does anyone really step up and seize all of it? We'll talk more about who we think might be able to do that, but we got to remember they also drafted Dalton Kincaid in the first round last year to go along with Keon, Coleman, early second round this year. Secured Curtis Samuel to play in the slot, from the Commanders. I know you'll have a lot of nice things to say about Mr. Curtis Samuel. You probably drafted him more than anybody. That would be my guess. So I think it's an offense that could potentially take a little bit of a step back, but I also think that we saw some really good things in the second half last year as far as Josh Allen goes, if we're talking about, what we think about his fantasy future.
It's an interesting situation because, in our Fantasy Life projections, yes, you did downgrade Josh Allen and the, overall passing production going on here, but it's not like we're expecting this to all of a sudden resemble, one of the least productive passing attacks in the game. And we're just seeing every single wide receiver involved priced down because of the uncertainty involved, man. Like Keon Coleman, let's see, he's going to be the most expensive of the group. Just the wide receiver 46 over Underdog Fantasy right now, not too far behind him, Curtis Samuel and Khalil Shakir. So with said projections, you do have Keon Coleman leading the way, 97 targets, Curtis right behind him with 87, and some of those sweet rush attempts that, to be fair, we saw offensive coordinator Joe Brady feed him back when they were together in 2020. That was Curtis's best career year with 1,050 total yards and 5 total scores. And then finally in third place, Khalil Shakir at 84. So how, what is the level of confidence with this, Dwayne? Because again, I know some depth charts and some projections got to be easier than others. We have, many more years of history attached to guys and incumbent offenses and everything like that. But especially with Keon Coleman, it doesn't seem impossible for him to potentially start the season outside of 3 wide receiver sets. Yet right now we do have to draft him as the wide receiver one in Buffalo.
Yeah, I think it's for Keon, everything that we heard from camp honestly kind of mirrored what we knew about him from his profile, and folks can check that out over at Fantasy Life. You can go check out the wide receiver supermodel and all the write-ups to go along with it. But like as a target earner, he was really good in college. He wasn't at the same level as Odunze, Neighbors, Harrison,
Sure.
but he was the next tier below that. He was right there with Ladd McConkey, whether it was man coverage or zone coverage. He had a 25% target rate in college against man and 23% against zone. But the biggest issue was everything was either deep or short. He was not very good in the intermediate areas of the field, which is really as a possession wide receiver, which is more what Coleman, in my opinion, projects as. I've seen some people say he's really more of the deep threat. I don't know that he's going to have the ultimate speed or chops to turn into that sort of guy. I think he could be a nice contested catch guy. A lot of his, and that's one thing you'll hear people say is, oh my God, so many of his catches were contested, and they were in college, even after adjusting for quarterback play, ADOT, and all those different things. It was plus 6% over expectation on those contested catches. So he's going to have to improve in that area. And I know a lot of people like Matt Waldman think he's a potential big slot option, but the Bills already have so many slot options.
Yeah.
So definitely a lot of questions, Ian, but I think the key for Coleman to unlocking the rest of his game is if he can become that better intermediate target guy. So that 10 to 19 yards, because to really become a high-end fantasy asset as a possession guy, you've got to be able to earn work in that 10 to 19 yard range. So we haven't seen him do that in college. Doesn't mean that he can't in the pros, but I think his ADP is one that scares me the most right now of the rookies going in that round 7 to 8 range right now. If you look at best ball drafts.
Sure, made for one really fun highlight reel, though. Gotta love those contested catches. Hell of a drug, at least from that standpoint. But yeah, man, looking at the rest of the depth chart, Mac Hollins, Chase Claypool, even MVS himself. Like, if you had to say who are those guys most similar to versus Keon, Curtis, and Shakur, I do think more of the skill set overlap is there with Keon. So again, if we get the job by week 8, and we get one of those patented second half rookie breakouts, everything will be just fine with Keon. But certainly, I've made more of a habit of drafting Curtis and Shakur, going quite a bit later, not quite a bit, but at least a little bit later than Keon in some of these early drafts. So again, don't underestimate particularly Curtis's potential to work as a weapon in both the passing and rushing game. Backfield depth certainly not exactly all that great in Buffalo for the time being. But Dwayne, we talked about it again, not exactly the world's greatest wide receiver core here, but unlike with someone, say Justin Herbert, who we have seen crater down the fantasy ranks in a newfound run first offense without his trusty number 1 wide receiver by his side, Josh Allen is still going as the QB1. He's still going in round 3, maybe round 4 of majority of drafts. So I will say the rushing upside is 100% why Josh Allen continues to go that high. If you look at his season last year, 4,306 passing yards. If he had only thrown for 3,500 passing yards, so remove 806 passing yards, still would have been fantasy's overall QB1. So yes, I know I'm cheating a little bit there because the passing touchdowns would have gone down too. But Dwayne, for you, is it as easy as just saying Josh Allen is one of the position's most productive rushers? I don't really care who he's throwing the football to, or do you think maybe we should be more concerned about this?
Yeah, I mean, it was fine last year. 23.6 fantasy points per game before the Joe Brady takeover. Afterwards, 27. So all they did was say, we're going to throw the ball less and we're going to run the ball more. And then we're going to let Josh Allen run the ball more on top of that. So you turned to more of a run heavy team, and you gave a larger share of that work to Josh Allen after we saw Joe Brady take over. Scramble rate up to 9%, design rushing attempt share 19%. So both of those things moved up. And obviously we know he did a lot of work inside the 5. That's the tricky part. Like, if the offense takes a step back, will he get as many opportunities to score the touchdowns down inside the 5? He's still going to be a guy probably getting 30 to 50% of those carries, but will they be in that position as much? I think that is the biggest question. And most of that comes back to Stefon Diggs, in my opinion, more than the fact that we're going to deal with Joe Brady. But I think the beauty of Josh Allen is he has shown that he can score fantasy points regardless of what kind of offense he's in. You want him to run the ball, he's going to run it. You want him to pass the ball, he's going to pass it. And if by some chance these receivers surprise us and he does throw for a lot of yards and he still has more opportunity in the rushing game, it's just going to make it hard for him to not finish in the top 3. I mean, the guy's been first, 3 out of the last 4 years, Ian. So trying not to overthink it. The market has pushed quarterbacks down, but I've seen some people say, I'm fading Josh Allen. I'm like, well, I mean, who am I taking over Josh Allen? You could maybe argue Jalen Hurts. I think he's priced right. He goes next to all the elites. You can argue whether he's 1, 2, or 3.
If you don't want to use a 3rd or 4th round pick on a quarterback, I think that's a fair argument. But yeah, actively dropping Josh Allen down the quarterback ranks, I think that's a lot harder to do. You said it, man. QB2, QB1, QB2, and QB1 in fantasy points per game over these past 4 seasons. And him and Jalen Hurts are just playing an entirely different position. I mean, we have seen dual threat quarterbacks, from Mike Vick to Lamar Jackson, put up big time fantasy seasons over the career. But, those guys usually not the type of players that we've also seen be the goal line hammers on their offense. That is the case in Buffalo and Philly. Last year, Jalen Hurts, 16 carries inside the 5-yard line. Josh Allen had 14. No other quarterback had more than 5. So truly seeing them again embrace a different offense. I almost feel like it's a little bit cheating what Joe Brady did, Dwayne. Good for him. Got the job and everything. And, Bills obviously had a nice little second half success. But, there was a big storyline going into last season about the Bills wanting Josh Allen to run less. All of a sudden, Brady gets the job and he says, F all that, we're going to go ahead and use Superman to the best of his capabilities. So to your point, I mean, hey, maybe he does just actually get things going again through the air. My man's is 4th in the EPA per drop back, 5th in completion percentage over expected since 2020 after all. So Josh Allen, whether it's through passing or on the ground, certainly still QB1 in our rankings and maybe even our hearts as well. Let's talk about, one of the remaining key members of this offense, Dwayne. James Cook. His numbers say he's a really good running back, PFF rushing grade, yards over expected per carry. He was 9th, 8th in yards per carry overall, 9th in explosive run rate, had freaking, 6th or 7th most PPR points from receiving production. Why am I so scared to draft him sometimes, man? They only added Ray Davis. Latavius Murray's gone. But are we positive, Dwayne, that James Cook isn't going to sadly drop another touchdown or fumble and get in the doghouse again?
Look, man, the way I look at him is he can actually get open down the field and be in a position to earn those kind of targets that he dropped. How many touchdown passes did he drop?
Four, Dwayne.
So
not
think
one,
if he scored
not two,
three
not
of
three,
them.
4.
Think if he scores 2 or 3 of those, just drops half of them, how different we might feel about.
Do you know how good you have to be to drop 4 touchdowns?
Yeah, exactly. So, but with James Cook, man, like I love where he's going drafts. I mean, he's a guy that I want to target more. You and I talk every year about looking at ADP, where guys are going, and us being scared. Because what if James Cook does somehow get 65% of the rushing workload? I mean, he's going into year 3. It's not like the competition is fierce. We're going to talk about Ray Davis in a bit. I really like Ray Davis. I think he's a nice sleeper pick. But it also wouldn't surprise me if James Cook took a step up. Last year, after Joe Brady took over, he had 51% of the rushing attempts. And a Buffalo offense is going to run it quite a bit. And also, we have questions in the passing attack, which could open up more targets for him. I think there's just a lot to like. I think he's one of the best receiving backs in the NFL, and that gives him a lot of outs if some of these wide receivers struggle.
I was having a little more of an issue with where he was going, honestly, when I kind of wrote this original preview a little over a month ago. But since then, he's actually dropped down a little bit and now going more so side by side, Joe Mixon and Rachaad White in round 5, round 6. I mean, from that perspective, that's fine. And honestly, like these don't even profile as the, quote unquote, dead zone running backs. Because to me, a dead zone running back is someone who are not expecting great efficiency from. They're not in a great offense. And we're dealing with someone that, again, is just getting by on that pure volume. Cook has had the efficiency. He's in a great offense. We wish he got more fantasy-friendly goal line opportunities, but, can't have it all. And hell, man, doesn't look like he has the most competition, again, with Latavius out of town and only a day 3 running back in Ray Davis added. So
and carries inside the 5 are one of the least stable data points year over year. Once you get into the season, it gets a little better week over week, but year over year, we see this thing change a lot. So I don't think anyone should assume. Anyone that comes out and tells you James Cook's not getting the carries inside the 5, they don't really know that for sure. That's just not a stat we're very good at predicting.
And again, it's one of those things where, yes, teams do have a certain short yardage back they want to lean on. But guess what? If you're in the hurry up and stuff, I don't think they're going to necessarily every single time stop the drive, make the substitution. James Cook, hey, I'm not saying, Dwayne, he's going to go in and score 12 rushing touchdowns, but what did he have last year? 2? And he was still
only 21% of the carries inside the 5 last year. So, but I'm also old enough to remember when Austin Eckler wasn't a back that got carries inside the 5. So, I mean, things can change.
The end of the day, with Joe Brady calling the shots, combined carries and targets in 9 games for James Cook, 21, 23, 15, 28, 20, 19, 17, 22, and 23. Tough to have, again, too much of a beef with that sort of volume and an offense that us in Vegas still believe will be putting up plenty of points in the year 2024. All right, Dwayne, we mentioned the shift last year from Ken Dorsey to Joe Brady. It was still an effective offense with Dorsey. We were still seeing the good numbers in EPA per play, yards per play, and all that good stuff. But when they did go to Joe Brady, guess what? Wins did start coming for them, had a great second half, and ultimately saw them go, a missed field goal away from taking the Super Bowl champions potentially to overtime. Sorry about that one, Bills fans. But all that said, Dwayne, it really was a different offense. How much can we kind of glean from, again, that, just second half sample size of the Joe Brady experience in terms of run and pass rate, and what do you expect to actually carry over into 2024?
I think it's kind of tough to decipher. I mean, Joe Brady has told us in minicamp that this is going to be the Josh Allen offense. Well, what does that mean? The Josh Allen running offense, the Josh Allen passing offense, the Josh Allen both offense. Man, if you're an offensive coordinator and you get to coach a guy like Josh Allen, like what an absolute treat. And honestly, you should dominate. And I wasn't that impressed, to be honest, with what Joe Brady did last year. Now, I will say he did use more motion and shifts and different things like that than what we had seen earlier in the season. So I think that's a positive. I think he's going to need to keep that trend going because, like you mentioned, we don't have Stefon Diggs anymore. So we don't have a proven guy we know can just go out there and win man on man, just go do it from anywhere on the field. So probably going to have to get a little more creative in the way that he is helping create advantages for his players ahead of the snap. So that was a positive. But overall, man, a minus 3% drop back rate over expectation and a 52% drop back rate overall. I don't know, man. I feel like you're really dependent on your defense a lot with that. And you've got a guy like Josh Allen. So I do think the truth could be somewhere in the middle between what we saw at the end of last year and what we've become more accustomed to seeing from this offense the 2 and 3 years before that, because we know defense isn't always stable. They've gone through a lot of changes in their secondary. I could easily see a situation where suddenly Buffalo's defense isn't that good anymore and they have to throw the ball more. So there's a lot of different ways that it could go. But I think, you probably have to middle this. I mean, and that's what I did in our projection model. I just put it in between. I didn't assume they're going to be that run heavy. Also didn't assume that they're going to just immediately go back to the ways of 2 and 3 years ago.
I will say they might just have a good enough offensive line to more or less do what they want at the line of scrimmage. Again, this is PFF's ranking 6th ranked offensive line. They returned 4 of 5 starters from a season ago. So again, new year, new Joe Brady, but same old Josh Allen under center. Whatever they want to do to move the ball, I imagine they will have quite a bit of success when doing so. Also, I'm hoping to have quite a bit of success betting on UFC 303 this Saturday in Vegas. Could it get any better? It sure can. Where you can get in on the action with our partners over at DraftKings Sportsbook, the official sports betting partner of the UFC. Truly a banger of the card. Again, we got the light heavyweight title rematch between Yuri Prochazka and the current champ, Poatan Alex Pereira. Shama, as always. And yeah, guys, I've been, pounding out the embedded at night, and it really does seem like a great card. Diego Lopez, some of the best hair in the UFC. That's just going to be such a firecracker of a match between him and Brian Ortega. Even Anthony Smith. I'm excited for an Anthony Smith fight. Never thought I would be able to come out there and say that, but short notice, got to give the man his flowers at some point. So, hey, new to DraftKings, guess what? Check this out. New customers who bet just $5 can get $150 in bonus bets instantly. Download the DraftKings Sportsbook app now and use our code FANTASYLIFE. Remember, the crown is yours. All right, Dwayne, you were talking about the defense a little bit, and I'm with you. They've gotten rid of some veterans and, put some more younger guys in the secondary, but I just didn't see enough of a, just insistence on getting that pass rush better. The win total's at 10.5. They're plus 155 favorites to win the division, but I'm taking under 10.5 wins, man. And this is not my most confident pick of all the win totals, I've gone through in the league, but I just look at the offense and let's face it. I think the offense on paper is not meaningfully better, if at all better than last season. The defense looks like they could be poised for a drop-off. And when we're in the year 2024 and we're at risk of an offense not taking the game out of Josh Allen's hands, but truly being one of the more run-heavy units in football, that's what they were last year. I am concerned enough here in a probably more competitive AFC East with the first place schedule to think that the Bills could finish 10-7 instead of 11-6. What say you?
Yeah. I'm taking the under 2, and that's what the market's telling us right now. I mean, it's minus 140 to take the under on 10.5, right? Versus plus 115 on the over. So I think you're accurate on that. I mean, the loss of Stefon Diggs, what's happened with the defense? Now, when you look at the Bills, they've either pushed or beat the Vegas spread each of the last 3 years. Yeah. So they've gone over this, but I do take the under. I also think you get the Jets, assuming Aaron Rodgers doesn't play one snap, they're going to definitely be better. The Patriots, as bad as they were last year, and as much, we'll get to them, here shortly, but at least a little bit improved, right? And the Dolphins are a team that we respect. So I also see this being a division that could be slightly tougher than last season.
And again, this is no hate towards Josh Allen. I see people saying now Jordan Love would be the quarterback they take beside Mahomes. For my money's worth, it has always been Josh Allen. Yeah, get out of here. And, every time we want to talk about the interceptions, let's also talk about how Josh Allen is the single best quarterback and not letting pressures turn to sacks. Always seem to leave that, little tidbit out of those conversations. And yeah, my God, the rushing upside too. Literally better than pretty much anyone other than Lamar.
Jordan Love after 1 year, people have lost their minds. Like, I like Jordan Love, but Jesus. I mean, Josh Allen's been doing this for how long? And he's still, their ages aren't that far apart, are they? What are they? Probably 2 or 3 years apart. Yeah.
Freaking people, man. People.
What's wrong with people? GTFO.
A couple more skill position situations to sort out, Dwayne. The key position battle in Buffalo this year is looking like the RB2 job. Again, we do have day 3 rookie Ray Davis, seemingly challenging incumbent RB2/RB3 Ty Johnson. So last time we saw this backfield, it was James Cook leading the way with a snap rate north of 50%, but it was Ty Johnson at 27% actually working ahead of Latavius Murray, who remains a free agent and more times than not was just a short yardage specialist in this offense last season. So honestly, and you could talk a little more about Ray Davis, Dwayne, but I don't want to completely write out Ty Johnson, because when Joe Brady did take over as, as not breathtaking overall as, Johnson's performances were, like that was kind of the key personnel shift in this offense. They signed Leonard Fournette and ended up not even playing him hardly at all throughout the year. Ty Johnson getting those extra snaps and James Cook being featured more actually did seem to be the notable personnel change that we saw during the second half. So as much as I do want to believe in Ray Davis, do you think we can just write off Ty Johnson already, Dwayne?
I see Ty Johnson more as the handcuff to James Cook, right?
Yep.
They're really more similar. I think they did what they had to last year because they just didn't like what else they had. But if they want to establish that physicality between the tackles, if they do by chance want to take a little bit of a load off of Josh Allen down inside the 5, if it's not James Cook, I think that it will be Ray Davis. He graded out in the 59th percentile of yards per team attempt. So, which we're just adjusting for the college offense that you played in. That's really good. You also look at him, from a standpoint of what the guys that watched him on film, Matt Waldman, you look at Lance Zierlein, they all talk about his capabilities as an inside runner. So I feel like he's the better complement, to James Cook. Now, rational coaching, how will all of this ultimately play out? I think this is one of those training camp battles that we're going to have to keep an eye on. I would never write off Ty Johnson just because every time he's gotten on the field, he's actually been pretty good. But my gut says, if they get it the way they want it, it will be Ray Davis. That's why they drafted him. And this is a guy that in the non-COVID year and then a year where he had a toe injury, he played 5 years. So people are like, they don't like him because they think he's a super old prospect. But once you take injuries and COVID into account, it wasn't that big of a deal. But the big thing is he led his team, period, in all 3 of those years that he was healthy. And one of those years was as a freshman. It is funny. They were all with like different teams. The dude played for 3 different teams. So that's another weird thing about the Ray Davis profile. So he's an older guy, but he has shown to be one of these guys you can trust. Not as good on passing downs. He's got some issues with his pass blocking, an okay receiver, but didn't grade out as well in the rookie supermodel there. But I do think if they form a tandem and it goes the way they want, it will be James Cook with Ray Davis doing a lot of the dirty work.
Truly, if we do see Ray Davis end up getting a chance to lead this offense, he's just going to be one of the first guys featured in all, the CBS, Fox Sunday morning shows. I believe he was one of 13 kids, had a pretty rough childhood, but obviously rose up through it, and now is a freaking NFL running back. So congrats to everything that Ray Davis has accomplished. But yeah, man, again, we talked about, more so in the offseason, like the idea that CJ Stroud against Georgia and then Michael Penix against Texas, like just these singular games where it doesn't necessarily match what the player did the rest of their collegiate career. But hey, for 60 minutes, they showed how great they can be. And if you do want to say like what running back had the single best game film from just one game last year, you put on that Ray Davis versus Florida tape, guys, and you were going to see a special player out there. So I guess that is, just the upside scenario, Dwayne. Yes, he's a day 3 pick, and we shouldn't be overly, enthralled about that. For every, James Robinson, undrafted, bad example, but for every, day 3 guy we do see boom as a rookie, we see a lot more that, don't even make the team or are strictly on special teams. But hey, 211 pounds, his BMI is 88th percentile in terms of, BMI, and James Cook is only at 10%. He could have that goal line roll, and then 6.8 PPR points per game over these last 2 seasons from receiving production, only trailed Bucky Irving among prominent NFL draft eligible running backs. So truly really good stuff from Ray Davis. And yeah, Dwayne, I haven't made, the biggest habit of taking them every single draft, but I certainly think outside the top 150 picks, tough to argue with anyone, and especially tough to argue with someone like Ray Davis, who has that theoretical 3-down workhorse potential should he get a chance to run with the job. But hey, we've made it, Dwayne, about 24 minutes through this podcast, and we arguably haven't even talked about the second most fantasy relevant player here. That is second-year tight end Dalton Kincaid. So, yes, no Stefon Diggs. Also, yes, we did see a bit of, stark splits for Kincaid with Dawson Knox on and off the field last year. So, how do you balance that, Dwayne? Because as much as I would love to say, oh, Kincaid, number 1 pass game option in Buffalo, no doubt about it. It is a little bit concerning to see that he's sharing the tight end room with the guy who is making the 12th most money of any player at the position.
Yeah, I think the positive thing working for him is Dawson Knox has just never been a very good receiver. So I do think that Kincaid is going to be the guy they want to go to. None of the underlying data points for Dawson Knox at any point ever in his career have pointed to, oh my God, this is a guy you have to have on the field. But to your point, it could be the MO of the team this year where they just want to rotate all of these guys, running backs, tight ends, wide receivers. And I can see this coaching staff be that type of staff to do that. However, when I'm playing fantasy, I typically am just not going to worry about a guy in year 2 like Dawson Knox or Dalton Kincaid and worry about Dawson Knox. Like, I think you have to go ahead and take the leap. So if you look at tight ends that scored at least 9 fantasy points per game in their rookie season since 2011. You've got Sam Laporta, Jordan Reed, Evan Ingram, Kyle Pitts, and Dalton Kincaid. And Kincaid was the lowest of those guys at 9.5. Laporta, obviously, last year was a beast at 13.8. But I think he showed enough. 17% target share. Like, you can do some similar analysis on that, and you're going to get a similar group of names. So he already all of his underlying data points already grayed out as a low end to mid range tight end one, and he's a young player. He's going to be another year, better in the system. He should be improved from the off season. So I think you got to gamble and you've got to bet on a big leap forward from Dalton Kincaid this year. So I think he's squarely inside the top 6 tight ends, and I think he has a shot to be a top 3.
And small sample size be damned. And I'm not even talking without Dawson Knox on the field, but without Stefon Diggs on the field. I mean, the ceiling here is absolutely, Dwayne, that sort of player that just terrifies us about, that we didn't draft more of them here. Shout out to CBS Fantasy's Jacob Gibbs. Noted that Kincaid ran 41 routes without Diggs on the field, which is essentially one game, caught 9 of 12 targets for 139 yards. You yourself posted the Bills' targets per route without Stefon Diggs on the field over the last 2 seasons. James Cook, 31%. Dalton Kincaid, 29%. No other Bills pass catcher above 20%. So it's rare to see an offense where the top 2 targets actually could be, non-wide receivers. But hey, your 2024 Buffalo Bills not shaping up to be your ordinary offense. Speaking of things that are not ordinary, my God, Dwayne, you know what I love after a hard day's work? Some Mike's Hard freaking lemonade. Hey, Fantasy Life fans, let me ask you a question. Was your day hard enough for a Mike's Hard lemonade? Are you in a slow draft that just won't end? Were you one pick away from the perfect quarterback wide receiver stack, but got sniped? Literally happened to me last night. I have Waddle and Tyreek. Why are you taking Tua 60 picks ahead of ADP? If you take them at ADP, I get it. It was my fault. Whatever, fine enough. 60 picks ahead. Anyway, living the fantasy life is hard, and Mike's Hard Lemonade is the reward for a hard-earned thirst. Reward yourself today. Go to www.mikeshard.com to find out where you can get Mike's nearest you. Hard days deserve a hard lemonade. All right, Dwayne, as we always do at the end of our team preview series, it is time to try to compare the 2024 Bills to a TV or movie character. I will kick us off with, in my opinion, one of the best movies of the last decade. I'm going with the main character, Andrew from Whiplash. Talent, obviously there. Andrew is, the lead drummer for Portions at one of the best music schools in the world. Josh Allen is the second best quarterback in the world. We've seen how close they've been over the years to winning it all. Lots of success at a pretty high level, but they just can't quite put it together when it's really needed. And consistently the same problem. In Josh Allen's case, it's Patrick Mahomes and the Chiefs. And in poor Andrew's case, it was his psychologically, just insane teacher, Terrence Fletcher. So will the Bills finally figure it out like Andrew did at the end of the movie? Again, I took their win total under, so I'm not the most optimistic. But that said, Dwayne, 10 wins is still getting you in the playoffs. And, Bills versus anyone for 60 minutes other than Patrick Mahomes, I'm probably betting on Josh Allen. So I'm hopeful, but yeah, it's been a much better, I would say, last half decade for Bills fans. They had a long stretch run there where they weren't even really a competitive team while the Patriots just ran the AFC East. But, pressure might be a privilege, but, certainly hurts more when your season's ending year after year in such painful fashion in January. So you got to follow up here, Dwayne?
Yeah, I'm going to go with Joey Tribbiani from Friends. Early Joey Tribbiani. It's like we always liked him. It seems like they would start to give him the storylines that made sense, but his character arc just never fully got there until the very end. Finally, they kind of make it this deal where is Joey going to get with Rachel, and it's kind of his season. So it's like what you said. The Bills, they're very interesting. We like them, but it's like we get to the end of the season and the storyline doesn't come completely together. We don't get this big payoff at the end. And it's just tough whenever you've got to deal with, Patrick Mahomes. So, he had to deal with guys like Matthew Perry, who was freaking hilarious. David Schwimmer had the early relationship with Rachel, so he dominated all the early seasons. So we'll see what happens. Maybe he can get over the hump and he gets one of those late Friends seasons, character arcs where Joey finally gets the payoff and gets the storylines that everybody loves to watch.
Great shout there. I hate this, millennial or even Gen Z, just trend where everyone's trying to shit on Friends or Seinfeld from past years, probably because they just picked a random episode and didn't watch it as a kid. Guess what, people? Nostalgia is real. And just, guess what? Maybe a show that was popular 30 years ago isn't your cup of tea in the year 2024. Be positive, though, Dwayne. That's all I'm asking from the people.
And if you think Seinfeld's bad, sorry, you're just an idiot.
Yeah, you're just completely wrong on that front.
Look, I can get with you on Friends. Like, I think Friends is good, not great. I think Seinfeld is amazing writing.
That is fair. Well, all right, everyone. Again, this was our Buffalo Bills team preview. First of the AFC East. We'll be back here very soon with the Jets, followed by, not the Jets, the Dolphins, then the Jets and the Patriots. I will watch the film and get better there. But yeah, you can check out all these in written form over at fantasylife.com. I will have all these team previews done early next week. Talk about a great day to be great. Also, be sure to peep Dwayne's projections, our Fantasy Life consensus rankings, all that and much more. The links are in the description. So subscribe and follow Fantasy Life on YouTube as we get you ready for draft season. Otherwise, just have a fantastic day. So for Dwayne, for producer Matt, I'm Ian. Thanks again for tuning into the Fantasy Life podcast. And until next time, take care.